go after them. Like literally get up off the chair, out of the booth. If they pass your booth, you go after them. Like stop them in their tracks. So just take action. No one's going to come to you unless you really put yourself out there.
You're listening to Thrive by Design, business, marketing, and lifestyle strategies for your jewelry brand to flourish and thrive. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Thrive by Design podcast, episode 195. It's Tracy Matthews here, Chief Visionary Officer, Flourish and Thrive Academy. And I'm excited, as usual, for this episode. We're on the countdown to episode 200. I cannot believe that I've almost recorded 200 episodes. I would love to know what your favorite episode was. If you're listening to the show for a long time, dig into your repertoire. And if you have any that are saved or anything that you've been listening to over and over again, I would love to know. And here's how you're going to do that. You're going to find me on Instagram at Tracy Matthews New York. Shoot me a direct message and let me know which episode is your favorite episode. Super easy. I'll have my Instagram handle in the show notes as well if you want to pop on over there. Super easy to find though, at Tracy Matthews New York. Tell me which episode is your favorite episode and why. You can get into as much detail as you'd like because I want to read these out and share with people so that we can have almost like a reference list of awesome episodes. And if you do shoot me a DM, I'm going to be giving one of you, if the person who does it the best, I'm going to be giving one of you a complimentary 30-minute coaching session right here on the podcast to help dive deep into your business. Sounds pretty awesome, right? And I am totally pumped for this because I want to coach you. I love coaching. I love coaching designers. It's so fun. In fact, I was speaking with my friend Aggie Burnett the other day, and Aggie has built a really great brand, fragrances called No Matera. And I asked her, how did you grow your business? And it was she had zero money when she was starting. She was investing all of her money that she had to invest in her business and product. And so she had to be the person who really focused on getting her brand out there. And she went old school with some guerrilla marketing tactics. And I'm really excited to have Aggie on the show today because I think while we're always talking about innovation and moving forward, there is this sweet spot or sweet blend, our ability to kind of bring in the old with the new so that we can really amplify what works for us. We're always talking about don't rest on your laurels. The old ways of doing business don't typically always work anymore, but there are some really great things that do work from a marketing standpoint. They're going to help you grow your business ongoing forever. This is good stuff, my friends. I'm excited about it. So before I do that, I wanted to, give you an opportunity to really up level and innovate and go guerrilla maybe on your marketing strategy as well and invite you to a free strategy call. These strategy sessions are perfect for designers who already have an established business, but you're trying to add another 10K top line revenue a month to your online sales or your business in general, either way. And it doesn't necessarily matter where you are now. If you're kind of in the earlier phases, you haven't even crossed the $100,000 mark. It's fine if you're committed to actually reaching that goal of adding another 10K a month in revenue to your business. Or if you're someone with a very established business doing multiple six figures, high six figures, or even seven figures, but you haven't quite figured out how to get your online sales going yet and really use your website effectively to grow your e-commerce and use your website basically as a sales tool. I'd love to invite you to jump on a call with us. We are helping out designers left and right, increase their sales, use their website as a legitimate, and I'm saying legitimate, source of revenue in their business so that they can have more freedom and flexibility in their life, so that they're really aligned with their purpose as a jewelry brand, and so that they feel a sense of accomplishment, knowing that the work that they're doing every single day is actually moving them towards a goal and not just like willy-nilly, I'm just doing all this stuff. I'm not really sure why, and feeling frustrated because they're not achieving anything because they don't know where they're going. So you can willy-nilly away, even into the six-figure or multiple six-figure mark. But once you get to a certain point, you got to focus on the right things. So if you're interested in jumping on one of these calls, it's super simple. All you have to do is head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/strategy. easy breezy. We're going to walk you through, kind of help you identify what your big vision for your business. Like if we were talking 3 years from now, what would you have accomplished? We're going to also be kind of checking in with where your business is now. And then we're going to be taking a look at what's kind of holding you back from reaching that vision on your own. Because I know sometimes when we have big goals, lots of things stand in the way that we don't even realize. And, if anyone knows me well, they know that my number one motivation for doing anything in life is to see results on the other side. And that is the same commitment that I have to our students over here and our clients at Flourish and Thrive Academy. I want you guys to see great success in your life and business. And nothing makes me happier than seeing someone crush it. So let me help you be the next person who crushes it. At the end of the call, we'll also let you know if we think that we can help you move a little bit faster towards your goals. If not, we'll send you on your lovely way. In any case, you'll walk away with a beautiful plan and some action steps on what to do next in order to achieve everything that you desire in your life and business. Really more with your business, but that always affects your life because something gets better in any case. So with that being said, I'll drop the link over in the show notes, but you can also head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/strategy and go apply right now. There's a little video on that page and a little description of more stuff to think about, but it's all good. And I'm excited. So I'm going to dive into this episode with a formal introduction of Aggie. So let's do this. Aggie Burnett is a PR and brand strategist dedicated to helping the underdog get noticed in a sea of lookalike brands. She is also the co-founder of Nometerra Fragrances. And as you'll hear in this episode, they were even able to get their fragrances on the shelves of Sephora. Pretty awesome. Anyway, right now, she's really focused on helping brands stand out with their messaging and their positioning so that they can, kind of shine and have a personality, a brand personality behind what they're doing so that they get noticed in the media, so that they get noticed by buyers, so that they're making more sales overall and really growing their business for the long term. So let's dive into this awesome episode. You're going to love Aggie. Excited. I have Aggie Burnett on the show today. I am so excited to have her. She is a PR and a brand strategist and a friend of mine. Aggie, welcome to Thrive by Design.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for having me. I am so excited to be on your podcast.
I am so excited to have you here. So we met through our friend, Sabina Hitchin, who is awesome. And Sabina's like, you need to talk to Aggie because she is doing some really great things in the influencer space, but from the brand side. And now she's teaching people how to do that. So you need to meet because I feel like there's synergy and alignment. And I think that she would be really awesome and helpful to your people. So we met at the Wing. Do you remember that?
Yes. How funny. Yeah, that was like in the summertime.
Met in the Wing, had some rosé, went to dinner, went to an event. We did a lot of things.
Yeah, it's true.
Podcast.
Fast friends. Also, Tracy was so quick to get me going on my next steps. Like you were so encouraging. You're like, okay, what are you waiting for?
Is that what I said to you?
Yeah.
So good.
Which was great. I was like, you know what? What am I waiting for?
What are you waiting for? Why are you waiting to get your stuff out there? Which is the truth, which is the bigger message. Maybe this should be like, what are you waiting for episode on the podcast?
Take action, period.
No. So, well, I'm glad that I was helpful to you and help you kind of sort through things, which is awesome. So
yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your brand and your journey and how you really built your candle business? Because I think that that's like really the relevant story here. About you had a product, you did some grassroots guerrilla marketing, got tons of exposure and really built a brand. So let's start with that beginning little piece.
Sure. So just to keep it quick and on point, I started my fragrance business Nometerra back in, I think it was like 2010, 2011. And I was inspired actually because I was a beauty assistant at Glamour magazine. So I got exposure to a ton of products, any kind of products, you name it, high end, low end, mid end, avant-garde, you name it. And what actually was getting me really jazzed was meeting the beauty entrepreneurs and learning about their process and launching their product businesses. Mm-hmm. And I would actually, like, as a beauty assistant, I was 22 years old. I would sometimes ask them for coffee or lunch just to pick their brain on how they even started their businesses and what I could do to start one as well. And I was just super inspired by them. And so when I left Glamour, I started a fragrance business, which meant basically ordering a bunch of oils to my apartment, my 300 square foot apartment in New York, and playing around with them and mixing and matching and seeing what would come of it. Yeah. And
you were just like mixing up stuff in your apartment.
Yeah. And my entire
did you not have a baby yet?
No. That was like, that was like 7 years before Hudson.
Okay.
And I made our hallways smell either amazing or people were questioning what was going on in there. And I would send them out. I would send out little samples to friends and family. I would do focus groups. I would set up focus groups for, friends and family and friends of friends, and get feedback and just figure out which ones were the best fit and which ones people were really getting excited about. So then we were ready to launch. We created an S Corp. We launched with 3 fragrances. We didn't have candles yet. And we had a big launch event where there were like 60 plus, editors and bloggers in attendance, plus an additional like 220 people in attendance that were just like influencers or friends and family. So it was a really, really awesome kickoff to our brand.
Oh, that's amazing. And so how many stores did you end up selling to?
So we ended up, our biggest sort of our goal store that we wanted to get into, our dream store, was Sephora. So we really focused, like doubled down on getting in there. But ultimately we were selling in about 40 to 50 different stores nationwide as well as internationally. And then in terms of Sephora, we were in every single Sephora store nationwide, so across the country.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it was quite the journey to get there.
Did you just focus on wholesale, or were you like doing direct?
Honestly, I think we were doing both. We were doing website as well as retail. Originally, our strategy was all brick and mortar retail. But as the internet became more progressive in terms of retail sales, we started to move away from brick and mortar and pretty much went completely direct to consumer. And that was the right move at the time, because we were getting a lot of influencers posting about us and they were driving traffic to our site. Plus, we realized, like, after everything we went through, getting into Sephora and working with them, that there's a lot more investment involved in being in a retail store that goes beyond just the product development and production and manufacturing. There's also advertising costs and hidden fees and buybacks. If you have to do those, there's a lot of different stipulations that are all added costs that people aren't aware of. So that's something I always remind people of when they're like, oh my gosh, my dream store is Barney's or Ulta. Just do your homework and check in on, what those costs are.
Absolutely. So we talk, over here, I kind of want to pivot the conversation a little bit to talk more about values and really building a values-driven brand. We talk about that a lot about creating a desired sharing proposition. That's really the thing that positions you as a jewelry company. And then being able to connect with your dream clients, basically on the values that you align with. Let's talk a little bit more about that for a second and how you did that with your brand, because I think that lesson can be really powerful, but how you kind of use some guerrilla marketing tactics to kind of partner with the influencers.
So to start about values, I really incorporated values in my current business, which is AB Creative, with my consulting, more than I did with my product-based business, only because I wasn't equipped yet. It was my first company. And I just wish someone had told me, like, make sure you're attributing your belief systems and your values to your company and to your brand. Now I know that, you learn, you live and learn after 5-6 years of experience. And I truly, truly believe that your brand is an extension of you, especially, as creatives, as people who are really, want to share their craft, want to share their values through their craft. So, for example, for me, one of my biggest values is like breaking rules and breaking convention. So every part of my business now, copy, marketing, the influencers that I partner with are all about, breaking convention and doing things differently. And those are the type of clients that I attract. And I'm able to share those values through the different ways that I market myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So I love that. Let's talk about a little bit about, I wanted to have you on here because when we met and the several times that we've spoken, you talked a lot about guerrilla marketing strategies and how you really use those to help the brands that you're supporting, but also how you did it for Nomaterra, excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about guerrilla marketing and getting exposure for your brand, because when you launched your beauty line, you were super scrappy. At least that's what you told me. Tell me the story of that and what you did.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Where do I start?
Tell me some good examples.
Yeah, so we were on a shoestring budget. We were self-funding everything. And I think a lot of, product-based businesses at the beginning are. And I just want to preface this by saying, like, it's totally doable. Like, you don't have to get an investor and you don't have to get funding. So some of the ways that we did this was, again, like our dream retailer was Sephora. So rather than doing an expensive $10,000 trade show, we were like, okay, maybe that's not the best strategy for us. What's the alternative? How can we go around it? How can we reach those buyers that are attending those trade shows without doing the trade show? So we ended up, going on LinkedIn and just finding the right buyers, basically testing out a bunch of different email configurations, finding out their, the corporate mailing address, and shipping a beautiful box with our products with a personalized note with all of our retail information, our cost information, and a press kit. And it ended up going to the wrong buyer, but that buyer was so nice and she ended up giving it to the right buyer. And then everything sort of, took off from there in terms of communications. During that process of us sort of communicating and talking with Sephora, it was a year and a half, 2-year process. And they had a lot of buyer turnover. And as a result, it felt like we constantly sort of had to reintroduce the brand to the new buyers that were coming in and basically excite them all over again. So one of the ways that we did that was, I ended up adding their emails, the buyers' emails, to our regular newsletter. And this is something like people don't think about. They're like, they send it out, their newsletter, to customers, right? But they don't actually, there's so much great stuff going on in your brand. You're launching your brand, you're launching new products, you're getting into this press placement, you're maybe opening up a pop-up shop or partnering, collaborating with other brands. Like, leverage that. Like, use that, like literally send out have like a folder with just the buyers that you're really interested in and stores you want to be in, and shoot them out a newsletter every month, giving you them updates on like.
How can you do that with the spam and privacy laws?
That's a good question. This is something that I was doing before GDPR.
Yeah.
So, I'd have to certainly look into that and create, have a follow-up answer. But, one of the best ways is probably to reach out to them by email, create a customized email just for them and, form that relationship. And then no longer it's spam. You know what I mean? Wow. Like, we had those relationships already. It was a 1.5-year long process. So we were already chatting with them. We were going back and forth on emails. So like, they were opening all those emails. Like, we saw it on the back end. Like, they were interested. They were like, oh, cool. They just opened up a pop-up in Brooklyn. Like, oh, cool. They were just in Allure. Like, all of that they were getting excited about. And I don't know if it was like, the universe, but the more we sent those out, they would email us back quicker and they'd be like, okay, let's move forward on this. Like, how are you with your packaging, et cetera, et cetera. Another way, another guerrilla marketing strategy is, not spending a ton of money on your launch, your launch event, like your launch party. We did it in under $800 and we had it in a gorgeous, stunning, huge loft in Chelsea overlooking the entire city skyline. We had partnerships, collaborations, we had sponsorship, like wine sponsorships, we had coat check, we had, food that was donated, we had customized popsicles with the actual flavors of each of our scents, like the ingredients that were in each of our scents in popsicle form. And all of that was sponsored. So one of the biggest tips that I can share is leverage your skill set. Like if you're really great at Photoshop or Illustrator, offer that as a skill, offer that as like an add-on to a sponsor and be like, hey, I'll create your, posters or marketing cards or the invitation, in exchange for you reaching out to the press or you reaching out to your media contacts. For me, I was offering media contacts because of my journalism background. So that's what I was bringing to the table. So I was going to sponsors being like, hey, I'm bringing in the editors, the press. Like, can you donate wine? Can you donate food? Can you make this? Can you make that? So don't feel like people are pressuring you to spend a ton of money to create a truly extravagant, beautiful event to draw in customers, attention, influencers, media.
Okay, awesome. I love that. So almost like doing some barter or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And just leveraging, think about like all the people that especially young brands, they're all looking for, customers too, like new customers, media contacts, etc. Like if you band together, you can leverage each other's followers.
Yeah, totally. So I have a question for you because you were talking about emailing and putting people on your email list and you were emailing a bunch of content. And I know this is like one thing that people really struggle with. Like, what do you email about and how do you leverage PR? So how were you doing that when you would get a placement or you were like covered in Allure or you had something cool going on or an event? How did you rotate like newsletters that were actually selling your product on your website versus like the exposure piece, like sharing what you were doing?
That's a really good question. Depended on what list it was, like which list I was targeting. If we're just talking like buyers, that would just be like the biggest updates. So like anything like big press wise. And sometimes I'd often clump multiple press placements into one email. Or if we were opening up in a new store that was complementary to theirs, then it would just be that because they're already so bogged down by emails. Like they don't care about like the tiny information versus customer lists. You space it out where it's usually like 3 nurture emails and then something sales related. So it could be you sharing your press or you sharing some blog posts that you wrote that you want them to check out and take action on. And then the other 3 would be nurture emails. So that means like maybe sharing some behind the scenes information or, maybe tips, entrepreneurship tips or jewelry making tips or just bringing them along on the journey of you building your brand.
Yeah. So I was just on a call, which you came on a little bit early. So you were hearing like the back end of it. And we have this designer, Jenny Wood, who's in our community. And she's like super slam. She's in our SOS program and she's busy. Like her business is really successful. And she's been having a really hard time like managing her time to get everything done. And she's like, I sit down to do the marketing piece and I just don't even like, there's no thought into it. So we were sitting there like kind of mapping out a marketing plan for her. And just like for the next 4 weeks, because it was really overwhelming her. And earlier in the season, she got this great opportunity to Keith Urban reached out to her to like develop some bracelets based on with his guitar strings. And then I think maybe part of the proceeds went to charity or maybe they didn't, but they just reached out to her. And also now another new member of Fleetwood Mac, someone who's playing in their band, reached out to her for the same reason. He's a guitarist.
Nice.
And so I think it's interesting because like I just had this idea as we were talking, Aggie, and I started taking a note. I put myself on mute and started taking a note so I can follow up with Jenny. Is like, what if she's like, promoting in her newsletter? She's already done this, and the Keith Urban pieces are already sold out. But this other guy from Fleetwood Mac, who's stepping in as a guitarist for Fleetwood Mac, has reached out to her about the same thing. Like she could use that, like leverage the Keith Urban opportunity. Like, hey, these sold out in 20 minutes. Get on the wait list if you're a Fleetwood Mac fan, because here's what's coming up. And
1,000%.
Do you like that idea?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything, any person that's of a, that has an audience, you can leverage them and make sure you're offering something, of course, in return.
Yep. And I don't know. I thought that was a really good idea because I think people don't know what to email about. And they make 2 really big mistakes is that they only send emails that are pitching product and they only send emails that are like, here's my newest blog post, or there's not like enough of a balance. And if you're trying to sell your products online or direct to consumer, there has to be like the balance of both to create that special exposure piece. And also know like what you were doing, Aggie, is like segmenting your list to the appropriate people. Like it definitely creates validity for your brand if you're sending out the stuff about Keith Urban to the stores that you sell to.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's something that they can leverage, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point, like I 100% agree with you. I mean, you really want your customers to feel like they're part of a movement, feel like you feel like you are making an impact on the world with your craft, and they're a part of that journey. And so when you think about it that way, you are able to really offer a lot of insight into your business, into your process, into your adventure in creating your brand and creating a new product and launching a new product that goes beyond the selling. Like nobody, you won't build loyal customers by just selling to them. They want to be a part of something bigger. So give them that.
I love it. So, okay, we kind of like went on a slight tangent, but I think this really still ties into this idea of like being scrappy, guerrilla marketing, getting things done, and like really thinking through like the kind of content and stuff that you're putting out there to connect with influencers. So we talked a little bit about values. We talked a little bit about connecting marketing strategies to get exposure. Is there anything else that comes to mind when you're thinking of ideas that might work or be valuable to help the designers think outside?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, I think it comes back to leveraging your special skills.
Yeah.
And in order to come up with guerrilla tactics that are unique to you and your brand. Because what I find a lot of times with my clients before they work with me is that they'll be spinning their wheels, reading a ton of different marketing strategies, and all the marketing strategies are conflicting. Like they're all opposing one another. It's like, pitch pro influencers, don't pitch macro influencers. Like, media is important for sales. Media is the opposite of sales and will never get you sales. Just there's so many conflicting pieces of information. And I find that, brand founders are constantly spinning their wheels, like trying to listen and read all this advice. And then they're also getting advice from people who've never done a business before, or they, you know what I mean? Like never have actually built a brand. So they're like, oh yeah, you should do this because like this celebrity does this, or or Cartier does this. It's like, okay, yeah, we're not like there yet. What can I do right now where I'm at that's scrappy and smart? So I think really utilizing your special skills, whether that be, again, like design, like being a great designer and being a creative, and therefore, maybe there's a piece of content that you can create that's really groundbreaking. It's a new way for jewelry to be created and then brought to market. Some other tips, like if you end up doing like a trade show, let's just say you do end up doing a trade show. Don't wait for the buyers to like come to your booth and you're like, oh my God, that's so-and-so from like Barney's or from, wherever. Go after them. Like literally get up off the chair, out of the booth. If they pass your booth, you go after them. Like stop them in their tracks. Like I did this we ended up doing a trade show, like an indie one. And I really wanted to talk to this one buyer. Like, this was like our first show and she did the whole loop. I mean, she went to all the different, booths, and she just happened to miss like our aisle. And I saw her from across the hall, and she was leaving after like being there for 3 hours. She was leaving, and I literally ran after and was like, hey, are you so-and-so? Like I would love to show you, our fragrances. I think they would be a great fit for your, offerings at Barney's. So just take action, like really put yourself out there. No one's going to come to you unless you really put yourself out there.
Were you freaking out? What was the outcome of that?
Oh my God, I was freaking out. I was so freaking out. I was like I was just building up the courage to do it. I'm like, no, I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to let her leave. Like, what am I thinking about? And I was like, no, I freaking paid like $4,000 for this booth. I'm going to talk to my number one buyer that I came here for. So I just encourage you to really step outside of your comfort zone, push yourself a little bit further, and go after what you want. Another thing is like, when we finally started talking with Sephora and they were like, hey, yeah, we'd love for you to come to San Francisco and pitch us your line in front of like the entire buying group. We're like, okay, great. But we wanted to wow them. And we, wanted to create some things, memorable. We wanted to stand out. So we ended up going to a Sephora store, planting our product on the shelves, like literally taking off Sephora's, like, I don't know what brand we took off, Chloe or some fragrance, took all them off the row and planted our fragrances and took photography of it, while there were like salespeople all around us. We're like, yeah, no, don't worry about it. And we ended up adding that to the presentation, and we kind of saw them do a double take. And the idea behind it was like, we wanted them to already imagine the brand already being on the shelves. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good tactic. I mean, you could kind of get busted, but at the same time,
yeah, but it's worth it.
Yep.
And what happens? So what if you get busted? They're like, oh, sorry, you can't do that. Can you leave? Okay.
Exactly.
Like, sometimes you have to break a little bit of the rules. And honestly, I don't even think what is a rule like that. It's not like it was probably a minute or two where we swapped out the product just to take the photo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Awesome. So are there any other examples that come to mind of aligning values with like some guerrilla marketing tactics? You mentioned something in our pre-interview about like animal rights activists and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if you are a brand that really values, that you have like a charitable angle, and maybe let's say that charitable angle is animal activism, like maybe you donate a portion of your sales to animal activist charities. One of the things you can do for a photo shoot, for a campaign, for a new launch, whether it's a product launch or brand launch, is reach out to, your number one animal activist charity and do a shoot with the people doing the groundwork for that charity, the people who are actually, going and helping animal conservationist centers. Or maybe it's the team that works for that charity. Maybe it's the employees that work for that charity that you have them wearing your piece of jewelry in a, let's say a safari setting or even a wildlife conservation setting. Like that's different. That's creative. That catches people's attention. Influencer strategy now, like everyone's doing it. So how do we make it different for your brand? Like how do we step outside and get you noticed? So things like that, where you're like, okay, maybe I won't go after like the typical jewelry influencers, the ones that are posting about every other brand like mine. Maybe I'll step outside of that and partner with a charity that is really dear to my heart and put those people on a pedestal because they're doing the kind of work that you value and that you can get behind and your customers will get behind too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a really good example. I mean, I know a lot of people who are designing jewelry for animal rights. And I remember at the live event, Flourish and Thrive Live this last year, we had Brittany Hennessy on stage, and she was talking about like, don't think outside of the box about the kind of influencers or partnerships that you're making. It's not just necessarily Instagram influencers. There's a lot of different ways that influence gets out into the world these days. But think about a mom blogger who is taking pictures of her hands all day, and you have these beautiful large
so
rings.
True.
Like that's a great kind of outside of the box way if the price point and the target market and the type of people that are going to be shopping your collection are in alignment with that audience. And so it's not just like, we think of all the big jewelry influencers these days with the big Instagram followings, and that's fantastic. But that I feel like sometimes those influencers, people aren't necessarily shopping the jewelry, they're just admiring the jewelry. And so I feel like someone who has like an alternative or alternate, maybe is a better type of thing outside of the jewelry space, is a great place to target. That's more like a dream client.
Exactly.
It's like almost like a human being instead of someone who's like posting everything about fashion and jewelry. You go a different route. So
exactly. And you nailed it on the head. Like, it's funny because there may be, those jewelry influencers that have gotten really popular, but to your point, like maybe they're admiring the jewelry, but are they actually putting the money behind that piece of jewelry? Chances are they're not. And so I actually encourage you to look at your customer base right now and see if any of those customers are repeat buyers, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, maybe they have a small following on Instagram or elsewhere, maybe amongst your community, your neighborhood. And maybe they're vocal about your brand, and see if you could partner with them in some way and leverage that natural organic interest that they have in your brand, that love for your brand, and grow the awareness of your brand through people like that.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much for being on the show, Aggie.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So where can we find you?
So you can find me at abcreativenyc.com. I do, specifically, I work with, brands that are either looking to launch, or they've launched and their launch didn't go so well, and they're trying to figure out what went wrong or how they can course correct to build that momentum. And so half of what I do is really reworking the mindset and helping the brand founder really tap into their authentic self, and being able to pull that through the brand and showcase that in the messaging. And then the second and third step is the social media, the marketing, the PR, and really coming up with strategies that are unique to that brand in particular and that brand founder, as opposed to like generic, template strategies, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Aggie, thanks so much for being here. I'm super stoked to have you, and you're amazing. We'll have links to all of Aggie's stuff over on the show notes for this episode. I just called you Aggie.
Everyone calls me Ag.
Agneta. Wait, how do you say your full name? Because it's
Agnieszka.
Agnieszka.
It's Polish.
I'm like, I can't even try to pretend like I can say that, but
no, I know. I don't think my parents thought about that when they didn't think that we'd be moving to the States when they came up with that name to name me that.
So it goes to Aggie. Anyway, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Tracy, again for having me, and good luck to everyone out there who's trying to build and grow their business. I know that when you start to get creative, really tap into your authentic self, you can make it happen.
Thank you so much for listening to the show today. It has been my honor and my pleasure to bring this to you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for listening. And if you want to follow up with Aggie, we're going to have all of her details over in the show notes, as well as a link to book your free strategy session and apply for that right now, right today. You can head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/episode 195, or head to straight to the source, flourishthriveacademy.com/strategy. Thank you so much for listening today. If you haven't done so yet, I would love it. Love it if you gave us a little rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. I love reading the reviews, and it's just exciting to see kind of evolve as a brand and as a podcast over the last 2 years. We are coming up on episode 200, and I really want to know what you think. So you can tell us in the reviews, but if you want to join that contest to win a free coaching session, I would love to invite you to send me a DM on Instagram. Head on over to @TracyMatthewsNY and shoot me a message. Tell me your favorite episode and what you love the most about it. Get detailed, be on it, because I'm going to be picking a winner, and that winner chicken dinner will get a free coaching session with me on the podcast. Let's do this. Thanks for listening. Take care till next time.